Welcome to Don't Fear the Weight podcast with your host Vicky bringing together science and personal experience.
Hi guys, welcome back to the next episode of Don't Fear the Weight podcast. I am, as usual, your tiniest of tiniest hosts, the Tiny Titan Vicky Masita. And today we have got a little bit of a different podcast. It's not going to be as sciencey as it normally is, and it's not going to be as bodybuilding related as it normally is. However, it is going to be something that myself and my guest Ric is very, very passionate about. So I'm going to introduce my next guest. He is Ric Moylan. Ric, how are you this morning, my lovely?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you, Vicky. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. Thank you very much. Now, I know, Ric, that you are not a very well-known face in the industry, especially in the industry that we're talking about, like bodybuilding and things. However, for all the listeners out there, if you want to give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are and what you like doing in the industry, so we have a bit of knowledge about you.
Yeah, it's very much true. I am, in terms of the sort of mainstream, bodybuilding, perhaps physique type industries that are out there. Yeah, I'm not particularly well known, but my background is I've been working as a trainer and a coach since around 1998. So I've got about 20 years experience in the industry. I come from a sports science and sport and exercise science background. I've just pretty much finished my master's finally in strength and conditioning, which, that's been interesting. And my sort of specialist area over the years has been, it's been twofold really. I've obviously done a lot of coaching and personal, I would call sort of traditional personal training, training clients hour after hour and whatnot. But then I've also done a lot of mentoring and coaching of other personal trainers, not just in Manchester where I'm from, where, a lot of the independent gyms in Manchester, and there's some quite well-known ones now, at some point I've mentored and coached all of the owners of these gyms. But my career then diverted into professional sport, which is a big passion of mine, in particular combat sports. And I was four years as the head of strength conditioning for Ricky Hatton and Team Ricky Hatton. Who's a fairly well known figure.
Brilliant. Yeah, he certainly is. Yeah. I think we've all heard of Ricky Hatton, definitely. So what is it that you concentrated on there? Was it purely performance-based personal training, or did you have a look at nutrition as well as like off-season training?
When I first sort of qualified, I went down the sort of old-fashioned route, really. I got my level 2. I came out of college. I'd done my A-levels in physical education and psychology, and then sort of didn't really know what I was going to do for a bit. So I saw a level 2 and then a level 3 with the YMCA back then, and going back a long time ago, and I qualified and really didn't have a clue, and I was very much learning on the job, so to speak, and. I didn't know much about anything. I knew the basics, and I knew basics of what were agonists and what were antagonists sort of muscles, but I didn't know much about the role of nutrition and so forth like that. So I very much learned as I went along, and it took me a while to build my business. Some highs, some lows. It took some lessons with clients and whatnot like that. And that was very much how I started, was very much learning on the job, so to speak. It was only, a number of years into the job that, as you go along, you start asking yourself questions like, okay, well, why is this method working with this client? Why is this method, the same method, not working with this client? Why is this nutrition plan working with this client? Why is it not working with this client? So my journey's been very much the way I believe it should be done, which is yes, backed up by knowledge and science, but also by learning on the job and going through the journey. very much so.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a really nice lead into the subject that we're going to be talking about. And it's something that's quite prevalent in the industry at the moment, by having coaches or PTs that realistically kind of wing it. Now, winging it is one of my favorite things to do, especially on these podcasts, as most of the listeners know about. We just kind of have a conversation and wing it. However, when it comes to PTing and coaching, it's one of those things that you really can't do, especially if you are looking to enhance somebody's performance, like a boxer, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you need to do things very, very strategically. So in your personal point of view, then, what do you see the PT industry going down the route of at the moment, or what do you see are the biggest problems in the PT industry?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Now, unfortunately, and it is an unfortunate thing. The entry into our industry now is very much a fast one, and you can do a course over a weekend or over a bit of distance learning and so forth, and that will give you a couple of letters after your name, or it will give you a title. And in my mind, what that does is it gives you the ability to get some insurance, which then gives you the ability to start learning your job. And I remember in my years of doing martial arts, and I've got various friends who are very, very high level martial arts practitioners, and they say, when they got their black belt, their instructor said to them, upon getting their black belt, "Congratulations, you're now going to learn martial arts."
Yeah.
So all of them belts up to being a black belt, that was their apprenticeship, so to speak, and that's where the valuable lessons are learned before you even begin as a black belt to start mastering your craft. And I think that is the issue with our industry, is that nobody wants to do the journey anymore. What we want to do is get very quickly qualified, get some letters after our name, get ourselves super ripped super quick, which again is a false foundation, and then put ourselves out there as a specialist. And the reality is, it takes many, many years to master your craft.
So are you thinking along the same lines of you can become a PT and be a jack of all trades but a master of none?
Yeah, very much so. But where I think I was going with it is a lot of the self-proclaimed sort of titles that are out there as well. And you asked me about boxing, and this is something that I'm quite vocal about. One of the questions when I worked in sport and still do work in sport, one of the questions I get asked a lot from trainers is how do I get a job in sport? How do I work with athletes like you? And I will always tell them the same answer. Go and work with young athletes who are up and coming, and do it for free. Don't get paid, because that's where you're going to learn. That's where you're going to make your mistakes. And these young athletes are only at a certain level of competition. And if I use boxing as the example, it is irresponsible. It is dangerous for you to train a boxer if you do not know what you're doing, because sadly there was another very recent high profile case where a young man lost his life. Combat sports, collision sports, people get hurt, and you need to take the time to really, really learn the role before you should start looking at training somebody at that level.
Yeah, definitely. So that's actually really interesting, because obviously I'm predominantly a bodybuilding coach. I do look into powerlifting, and I do look into some strongman as well, and have some ideas of those. But in strength and conditioning, obviously, I'm qualified in that regard as well. However, boxing and various other sports specifics, I wouldn't have a clue on where to start. So if we actually look at the differences between sports performance and a boxer, and how you would generally set up a training program for a boxer in regards to safety as well, how would that be different than just getting somebody into quote unquote shape?
Well, I think you've already sort of half answered that, really, Vicky. In that, what happened is obviously boxing, like a number of other sports, it's a sport where you have to make a weight. You have to make a minimum weight. So with that in mind, then there was various methodology that started to cross over from, say, bodybuilding. That would, yes, it would help you reduce body fat. Yes, it would help you reduce sort of, overall adipose tissue and reduce fluid levels and whatnot like that. And that's fine, because it would help the boxer, hit the weight that they were supposed to hit. But certain aesthetic type sports, let's say, I think it's fair to say that during competition phase, the guys and the girls perhaps aren't they may be at their peak of conditioning or reduced body fat, but their health isn't always the best.
Absolutely.
Their heart rate might be slightly increased at rest, their blood pressure might be increased, all these kind of things. All these basic markers are highly, highly dangerous for a competitive boxer. So you're using methodology there that, yes, it will work in terms of making them, hit a weight on their scales. But what about the markers of health? What about the things like resting heart rate, the things like hydration levels, and whatnot like that? And you're putting these guys' health, guys and girls now as well, excuse me, you're putting their health and their future life at risk. It's a real problem for me.
Yeah. So what are I'm still really interested in knowing that, because health is like a really big thing for me. Obviously, I'm a natural bodybuilder, so health has got to be a primary driving force, and that's not just for myself, but for all of my clients as well. I love to know about their health markers, and I ask about their energy levels, their lethargy in the gym, whether or not they're performing correctly, hydration, skin, various other bits like that. What are the fundamental health markers that you look for when prepping a boxer?
I think, like you've said, there's quite a wide battery of tests, and it can be basic things such as skin, eyes, tongue, hair condition, responsiveness during basic cognitive function. We also look at basic agility testing to then test their cognitive responses and so forth like that. But then we will go a little bit further, and we will look at urine analysis in particular, saliva analysis, things such as orthostatic testing, where we're looking at the variance between heart rate at rest and the volume that the heart rate will increase just by getting them to, from a lay position or a sort of supine position to standing, and blood markers is a key one as well. So there's a whole battery of health sort of testing that we use, and it's absolutely crucial for the fighter, because we've got to keep them safe. And here's the thing with fighters as well, is sometimes you've got to keep them safe from themselves. Yeah, because they're fighters, and they love it. They're fighters are born. There's no question about that in my mind. What we do supports the fight, but we have to remember that these guys are, they love it, and we've got to keep them safe from themselves sometimes. Yeah, that's it. It's one of those things that they just want to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap. Absolutely, and they're brought up in a culture, and it's a fine line really, but the culture is of being tough, of pushing hard, of working hard, of do more, must do more, and if you look at a traditional fighter training plan, it's very much volume based. There is it's all about volume and going to extremes and working hard all the time, and overtraining's a myth and all this kind of stuff, and I remember doing some sort of power based lifting with a lot various sort of athletes over the years, and we'll only do say a couple of sets on any given exercise, and they're like, what is that it? I want to do more, and I'm trying to talk to them about peak power and saying no, that's it for today, and they're like, that their culture is something that is an ongoing, and that develops you as a coach, and that will test you as a coach as well, because you're trying to develop them, but also break down myths that they've been brought up with as well.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So let's just move on swiftly to the PTs that you actually work with.
Yeah.
So you're a speaker and you're a mentor for PTs as well in the industry. What is it that you try and get them to learn first off, as in to be the best kind of PT that they can be, regardless of the fact that they've just got their level 3?
I mean, it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
There's far more knowledge available now than there certainly was when I qualified, or it's more easily accessible. Let's say, not that there's more knowledge; it's more easily accessible.
Yeah.
And what I'm noticing now is you get newly qualified trainers, okay, and then there's two sort of types. There's the one that's just sort of steaming in, like we said, doesn't want to do the journey. Just I'm a specialist. I'm blagging it and winging it, as we talked about earlier. And then the second type is you've got this, like the sponge who are desperate for knowledge and they're reading and they're studying and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I'm big on is that I touched on it a little bit before. I noticed that certain programs would work with certain people, certain programs wouldn't work with, the same program wouldn't work with somebody else. And what I realised was the more that I started to learn about training and nutrition and science and all that, the more I actually needed to learn about people.
Yeah.
And the more I needed to remember the humanistic side of the job. And so something I'm very, very keen on with my guys when I work with them is to remind them that people hire people. People do business with people, and people, in my opinion, that what they want to know is that you understand them, that you understand their fears, their hopes, their dreams, their insecurities, and that they can talk to you in a confidential, way, in a way that they're not going to be judged. That they are going to have a cake on, occasionally, or they are going to have a drink on a weekend, and that you understand that they are human beings at the end of it. So I think, have I answered your question there? I think that's something that I'm very, very keen on when I'm mentoring PTs, is to remember that we are dealing with people, and that we are dealing with everybody's perfections and imperfections, whatever they are.
That's it. Exactly. And what I really like as well about, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is actually personalization for those people. And like you just mentioned there, people hire people, and it is called personal training for a specific reason. And anybody who can just kind of throw out a cookie cutter program, and I suppose it obviously goes for boxing as well, or various other sports that you focus on. If you just throw out one program, it's not going to suit absolutely everybody in terms of training or, progressing in terms of boxing. I mean, what do you think about that? Would you personally design and tailor a specific plan for each individual boxer or fighter that you have?
Hi, Vicky. Can you hear me? I lost you then, sorry.
Right, did you? No worries. I thought you went a bit quiet.
Sorry, would you mind just repeating what you just said there from where you said people hire people? Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. It's okay. So basically what I was saying was you can't just have a cookie cutter program that you throw out to absolutely everybody. And none of my two plans for, even if we had the same size, male, same weight, same goals, everything else, their training plan would look completely different based on, the way that their frame was, the way that they can physically move, and that kind of thing. Would the same be said for a boxer or a fighter as well, or would you have like a linear program that you would have to follow for specific fighting techniques?
No, I think we have to remember, like we've just said, that people are people, and so with that in mind, we many of us have similar arms, similar legs, similar limbs, muscles, etc. But we absolutely cannot. You cannot, or it's bullshit to give the same program. A real bugbear that I have no problem with online training and so forth like that, and that's fine. But often when I've got a PT sat in front of me and I drill down why they want to go into online training, it's all about them. It's not about it's not about the client. It's all about them making tons of money. It's not about the client. Again, what I would then remind them is that if they were actually really, really good at what they did and followed their passion, and the money will follow. I'm a big believer in that. They want to get into online coaching when they can't even coach people face to face.
Yeah, big thing I've seen.
Yeah, you can't coach people face to face. How the fuck are you going to coach somebody online? When you've got so many more communication barriers there, and so I'm absolutely not a fan of the sort of one size fits all and rolling out programs. I would rather see somebody, if they're going to coach or if they, whether that's online or face to face, I would rather see them charge more and deliver a better service and a personalised service. The last time I looked, the title was personal trainer, and if you draw a line in the middle of that, where's the personal side?
Yeah, it's just training, isn't it?
Yeah, and it pisses me off when listen, people have got to make money and people have got to pay their bills and all that. But it pisses me off essentially when I see, people frauding people. By rolling out these bullshit programs,
I completely agree. There's one of the other things that I wanted to just kind of add on to there as well. What I find a lot is personal trainers or coaches who go online actually delivering their own program that they are doing themselves to their clients because it seems to be working for them. And I honestly, it's one of the biggest things that just kind of makes me think, are you for real, for serious? Because realistically, if I gave one of my girls my program, there's not a chance that they would execute it in the exact same way that I do. And they wouldn't be able to execute it anyway, because mine's fairly detailed and I'm of a higher caliber athlete than some of my girls that are training for bikini or just training for general fat loss, for example.
Yeah. I mean, it takes me back to years ago when we'd recruit. And for me, it's just a classic sign of inexperience, and it's a classic sign of where they're at on the sort of journey. I remember years ago when I worked in gyms, and most trainers and commercial gyms, that was the route we took. There wasn't really many other options for us. And you'd see like a fairly newly qualified PT, and they'd go and do a weekend course, and then on the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, all the clients were doing what they'd learned that weekend.
Yeah.
So I think for me, what it's all about is I don't believe in overly assessing, whereby then we're not actually doing any work. But I think we have to do some base levels of. We talked about health markers with our clients, but also what about some sort of biomechanical basics? I see people, mad shit in the gym with their clients, and the client can't even stand on one leg.
Yeah.
The client can't even stand on one leg without a really horrendous knee valgus shit. They've got them doing all kinds of mad biometrics because it looks cool for their Instagram story, So, and don't even get me started on that one. But
oh no, let's do it. I love these little rants.
No. So, I will come to that in a sec, but I think it's all about doing what's right for the client, not what makes you look cool. Because ultimately, if we want to talk about your business and your marketing and whatnot, there is no better marketing than a happy client. There is no better marketing than somebody living and breathing. A living, breathing success, and that you've helped them on their way. And it real pisses me off seeing the whole Instagram story thing and all that kind of stuff. I think to myself, get off your phone and train your client. Get off your phone and coach your client. That said, I do get that people's engagements are now increased if they're doing Instagram stories and whatnot. So maybe I'm just being a bit of a dinosaur there, and there's a balance. But I'd consider myself, an old-fashioned coach. I like to see people coaching, people listening. I think that is a crucial skill of coaching, is being able to actually listen and relate to your client.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with the Instagram thing as well, because I've seen so many recently who are videoing their client doing a seated dumbbell overhead press, for example, or a seated dumbbell press. Now, that is one of the biggest exercises that you should be spotting on, like seriously, and adjusting their form as and well needed, especially if you're asking your client to fail on that particular exercise and you're videoing them failing on a shoulder press. It's like, dude, maybe video them on a prowler or on a hack squat or something that's a little bit safer.
100%, and like you say, it comes down to your basics and your foundations, and one of your foundations is to keep your client safe.
Yeah.
Whether that's a top level athlete or whether that's an absolute beginner. And if we look at trying to get results with our clients, well, how can we get results with our clients if they're on the treatment table?
Yeah.
Now, you're videoing certain exercises where you're asking them to perform at high load and a top end percentage of a 1RM. I'm not so sure. Then fine, if there's a third party videoing you and whatnot like that, and you're in that video. But for me, get off your fucking phone and get coaching, and it's something that really irritates me.
Excellent. I'm actually going to use that and put it as the title of this podcast. Get off your fucking phone and start fucking coaching. I love that.
That'll do me.
Yeah.
That's good for me. I think what it's about is remembering what you're doing the job for. And to me, in my mind, it was always about trying to help people, trying to develop them, trying to improve them. And the whole premise of having a personal trainer for me is the experience. And I was always, sort of taught that you made the experience positive from the minute they walked in right to the end. And that, part of that is developing their skills, developing their knowledge, improving their weaknesses, communicating with them, being present with them rather than, being on your phone and whatnot like that, So yeah. I'd like to see a bit more of a return to what I'd call proper coaching.
And how do you think that we're going to be able to change that? Do you reckon that we just kind of keep on battering on, or do you think we're always going to be stuck in this continual cycle of cereal box coaches?
I don't know really. I mean, the industry is very trend based. When you've been in it a long time, you'll see that varying trends sort of come and go. I think that's always going to be the case. I think what it's up to is the guys and girls out there that are doing it for the right reasons. Yeah, I think you've got to keep banging the drum. I think we have to accept, like in anything, that people are going to do things that we don't agree with. People are going to do things that we don't like. I'm not about, certainly in a gym environment, I wouldn't, I'd never pull them in front of the client and so forth like that. I'm about developing trainers. Unless there was something horrendously dangerous, then I would stop them, and I would have no qualms in stopping them there and then.
Sure.
But I accept that not everybody's going to want to is not in the industry for the right reasons. I accept that not everyone wants to develop themselves and be the best that they can be. But what I do is try and look at myself, try and develop myself, and try and develop those around me. And I think it's up to the legit trainers, as I call them, the legit coaches, to keep banging the drum. Definitely.
Brilliant. And I think that's a really nice note to end it on, actually. So tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you, and whether they can get in touch with you, the best places to do that. Not
on my Instagram story, because I'll be too busy actually doing the fucking work, which is what I'm doing. But no, I might get some stick over that, but well, whatever. But because as I say, we have got to embrace social media, fine. But I think it's all about balance. Where you can find me is on all the usual channels at Ric Moylan. There's no K in my name; it's just RICMOYLAN, or on my website, same as ricmoylan.co.uk.
Perfect. So that's it for another episode on Don't Fear the Wait this week, guys. Thank you ever so much to Ric for spending his time and having a coffee with me this morning. I always like my coffee chats, so that's always a nice one. And like we said, I'll put all of those links in the comment section below. So if you do have any questions or any comments for that matter for myself or Rick, then obviously please put them in there and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. All right, so take care, lots of love, and I will speak to you all next week.